Virginia Louise Giuffre is an American-Australian campaigner who offers support to victims of sex trafficking. She is an alleged victim of the sex trafficking ring of Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre created Victims Refuse Silence, a non-profit based in the United States, in 2015, which was relaunched under the name Speak Out, Act, Reclaim in November 2021. She has given a detailed account to many American and British reporters about her experiences of being trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Giuffre has pursued criminal and civil actions against Epstein and Maxwell, and has appealed directly to the public for justice and awareness. She sued Maxwell for defamation in 2015, and the case was settled in Giuffre's favor for an undisclosed sum in 2017. On July 2, 2019, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ordered the unsealing of documents from the earlier civil suit by Giuffre against Maxwell. The first batch of documents from Giuffre's suit were released to the public on August 9, 2019, further implicating Epstein, Maxwell, and a number of their associates. The following day, August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan prison cell. In an October 2019 interview for BBC's Panorama, aired on December 2, Giuffre described her alleged experiences of being sex trafficked by Epstein for Britain's Prince Andrew, which helped shift public opinion against the prince. Early life. Virginia Giuffre was born Virginia Louise Roberts in Sacramento, California, on August 9, 1983, to parents Sky and Lynn Roberts. The family relocated to Loxahatchee in Palm Beach County, Florida, when she was 4 years old. Giuffre has a younger brother. It was reported that she had come from a troubled home and, from the age of 7, was molested by a close family friend. "I was just so mentally scarred already at such a young age, and I ran away from that," she said on Panorama in 2019. Giuffre told the Miami Herald that she went from being in an abusive situation, to being a runaway, to living in foster homes. She lived on the streets at age 14, where she says she found only hunger and pain and abuse. Later she was abused by a 65-year-old sex trafficker, Ron Eppinger, in Miami. Giuffre lived with Eppinger for approximately 6 months. Eppinger reportedly ran a front business for international sex trafficking known as the modeling agency Perfect 10. He was raided by the FBI and later pleaded guilty to charges of alien smuggling for prostitution, interstate travel for prostitution, and money laundering. At the age of 14, Giuffre reunited with her father and returned to live with him. Her father worked as a maintenance manager at the Mar-a-Lago property owned by Donald Trump, and also helped Giuffre obtain a job there. Association with Epstein. In mid-2000, Giuffre met Ghislaine Maxwell when working as a spa attendant at Donald Trump's private Mar-a-Lago club while reading a book about massage therapy. Maxwell, a British socialite and daughter of the late media tycoon Robert Maxwell, approached Giuffre, noted the book that she was reading, inquired about her interest in massage, and offered her a potential job working for Epstein as a traveling masseuse with the assurance that no experience was necessary. When Giuffre arrived at Epstein's Palm Beach home, she says he was naked lying down and Maxwell told her how to massage him. "They seemed like nice people, so I trusted them, and I told them I'd had a really hard time in my life up until then. I'd been a runaway, I'd been sexually abused, physically abused. That was the worst thing I could have told them because now they knew how vulnerable I was," Giuffre stated. Giuffre has stated that after Maxwell introduced her to Jeffrey Epstein, the two quickly began grooming her to provide sexual services under the guise that she was to be trained as a professional massage therapist. Between 2000 and 2002, Giuffre was closely associated with Epstein and Maxwell, traveling between Epstein's residences in Palm Beach and Manhattan, with additional trips to Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico and private island Little St. James. In the Miami Herald's investigative journalism series Perversion of Justice, Giuffre describes her experiences of being trafficked by Epstein to provide massages and sexual services for him and a number of his business associates over a 2.5-year period. In her interview with the BBC, Giuffre said she was passed around like a platter of fruit to Epstein's powerful associates, and taken round the world on private jets. Of the instance in March 2001 that Giuffre was allegedly trafficked to Prince Andrew, she stated in an interview that it was a wicked and really scary time in her life and that she couldn't comprehend how in the highest level of the government powerful people were allowing this to happen. Not just allowing but participating in it. After visiting a nightclub, Giuffre says Maxwell told her that she had to do for Andrew what I do for Jeffrey. In court documents from a civil suit that were released from Seal in 2019, Giuffre named several others that she claims Epstein and Maxwell instructed her to have sex with, including hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, attorney Alan Dershowitz, politician Bill Richardson, the late MIT scientist Marvin Minsky, lawyer George J. Mitchell, and MC2 modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. In an unsealed deposition, Giuffre also recounted seeing President Bill Clinton with 2 young women while on Epstein's island. Many of the men denied Giuffre's allegations. In September 2002, at the age of 19, Giuffre flew to Thailand and attended the International Training Massage School in Chiang Mai. Maxwell provided her with tickets to travel to Thailand, and instructed her to meet with a specific Thai girl to bring her back to the United States for Epstein. While at the massage school in Thailand in 2002, she met Robert Giuffre, an Australian martial arts trainer, and the two married quickly thereafter. She contacted Epstein and informed him that she would not be returning as planned. She and her husband started a life and family in Australia, and Giuffre broke off contact with Epstein and Maxwell. For 5 years, Giuffre and her husband lived a quiet life in Australia with their young children. First contact by authorities. In March 2005, while Giuffre was still establishing her family in Australia, the Palm Beach Police Department began investigating Epstein after a 14-year-old girl and her parents reported his behavior. The girl described being recruited by a female classmate from her high school to give Epstein a massage at his mansion in exchange for money, wherein he subsequently molested her. By October 2005, the police had a growing list of girls with similar claims of sexual abuse, statements from Epstein's butlers corroborating their claims, and a search warrant for his Palm Beach property. Police detectives noted that the accusers all described a similar pattern where Epstein would ask them to massage him and then sexually assault them during the massage. When police searched through Epstein's trash, they found notes with the telephone numbers of the girls on them. One of the girls was called by Epstein's assistant while being questioned by police. Giuffre relayed to the Miami Herald that she received a series of phone calls in rapid succession over 3 days in 2007. The first call was from Maxwell, then 1 day later came a call from Epstein, both of whom asked if she had spoken to authorities, followed by a third call from an FBI agent who stated that Giuffre had been identified as a victim during the first criminal case against Epstein. She resisted speaking at length to the FBI until she was approached again about the matter in person, this time by the Australian Federal Police, 6 months after being contacted by phone. Photos, records, and witnesses confirm large parts of Giuffre's statements about her time with Epstein. Legal proceedings. First criminal case. In 2006, a year before Giuffre was first contacted by authorities, the Palm Beach Police Department had a growing body of evidence against Epstein, and signed a probable cause affidavit charging him with multiple counts of unlawful sex acts with a minor. Epstein hired a team of powerful lawyers, including Alan Dershowitz, Jack Goldberger, Kenneth Starr, and Jay Lefkowitz, to serve in his defense. As the case progressed, Police Chief Michael Reiter became alarmed at the handling of the case by state prosecutors and then State Attorney, Barry Krischer. On May 1, 2006, Reiter asked Krischer to remove himself from the case. When Krischer declined, Police Chief Reiter turned his evidence over to the FBI for federal prosecution. While Reiter was initially hopeful that the FBI would thoroughly investigate and move the matter to a conclusion, in 2007, then South Florida U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta decided not to prosecute Epstein in federal court and referred the matter back to the local jurisdiction. Lead police detective Joseph Ricari asserted that the state prosecutors were at first eager to pursue criminal action against Epstein, but that everything took a turn when lawyer Alan Dershowitz got involved. Krischer then decided to take the unusual action of turning Epstein's case over to a grand jury, and then presented testimony from only one girl. Epstein's legal team aggressively sought concessions and prolonged the process when negotiating a plea deal with Alex Acosta. Acosta, who described the tactics of Epstein's lawyers as a year-long assault on the prosecution and prosecutors, eventually agreed to sign a controversial non-prosecution agreement in 2008, which was done without informing the victims, later determined to be in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Reiter expressed that the state and federal prosecutors' handling of the Epstein case amounted to the worst failure of the criminal justice system in modern times. Crime Victims' Rights Act lawsuit. In 2008, a lawsuit was filed by Bradley Edwards and Paul G. Castle that accused the U.S. Justice Department of violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act during the first criminal case against Epstein by failing to allow several of his victims to challenge his plea deal. Epstein sued Bradley Edwards for civil racketeering but later dropped his suit. Edwards countersued for malicious prosecution, with the result that Epstein issued a public apology to the lawyer and settled the case for an undisclosed sum in December 2018. Edwards, who represents several Epstein accusers in addition to Giuffre, reportedly settled in aid of his clients, whose greatest wish was to pursue their larger objective of having their allegations heard in a federal court in order to overturn the non-prosecution agreement. Edwards stated that they're willing to talk. They want to share their stories. This was part of their healing. In a February 2019 ruling, District Judge Kenneth Mara determined that prosecutors had violated victims' rights as defined by the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Victim civil suit. In May 2009, Giuffre filed a lawsuit as Jane Doe 102 against Epstein and accused Maxwell of recruiting her to a life of being sexually trafficked while she was a minor. By late 2009, dozens of Epstein's victims had filed civil lawsuits against him. All suits were settled for undisclosed amounts. In January 2022, unsealed documents revealed that the settlement amount of the 2009 case, entitled Jane Doe No. 102 vs. Jeffrey Epstein, was $500,000 and other unspecified valuable consideration. Decision to speak out publicly. Giuffre credited the birth of her daughter on January 7, 2010, as the date she decided to come forward publicly and begin speaking out about her experiences of sexual abuse and trafficking, despite the risks. Vanity Fair stated that Giuffre's story was first publicized in March 2011 by the Mail on Sunday. The coverage included the photo showing Prince Andrew with his arm around her at Maxwell's house in Belgravia, London. FBI agents again made contact with Giuffre, this time at the U.S. consulate in Sydney in 2011, soon after she went public with allegations against Epstein. In December 2014, Giuffre set up the framework for her organization Victims Refuse Silence. It was registered as a 501 non-profit organization in 2015. The objective of Victims Refuse Silence is to help survivors surmount the shame, silence, and intimidation typically experienced by victims of sexual abuse, and to help others to escape becoming victims of sex trafficking. For her organization, Giuffre has used imagery of a blue morpho butterfly to symbolize the transformation and empowerment that occurs when a victim becomes a survivor. Blue is the international color of human trafficking awareness. The United States has designated January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, with January 11th listed as National Wear Blue Day. Giuffre's charity was relaunched in November 2021 under the name Speak Out, Act, Reclaim. Prince Andrew allegations. In a December 2014 Florida court filing, intended for inclusion in the 2008 Crime Victims' Rights Act lawsuit, Giuffre described being trafficked to Prince Andrew, Duke of York, at least 3 times when she was 17 in 2001 for rape. She claims that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell took her to Tramp nightclub in London, where she met and danced with Andrew, and that later that night, while en route to Maxwell's Belgravia residence, Maxwell instructed Giuffre to do for what you do for Epstein. She alleged Epstein paid her $15,000 to have sex with the Duke in London. A photo that shows Giuffre, Prince Andrew, and Maxwell in Ghislaine's apartment has been widely circulated since 2011. Prince Andrew's 10-year role as a United Kingdom trade envoy was terminated in July 2011, and he reportedly cut all ties with Epstein. When asked in 2011 whether Prince Andrew would have information, she told her lawyers, yes, he would know a lot of the truth. Again, I don't know how much he would be able to help you with, but seeing he's in a lot of trouble himself these days, I think he might. She added. So, I think he may be valuable. I'm not too sure of him. The second sexual encounter allegedly happened in Epstein's New York mansion. In court documents, Giuffre claimed that the third encounter with Prince Andrew was an orgy on Little St. James that involved her, several underage girls from Eastern Europe, the prince, and Jeffrey Epstein himself. In 2015, spokespersons for the British royal family stated that any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors is categorically untrue, later repeating the denials. Requests from Giuffre's lawyers for a statement under oath from the Duke about the allegations were returned unanswered. In August 2021, Giuffre started a New York lawsuit against Prince Andrew, accusing him of sexual assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Giuffre's lawsuit, which seeks unspecified damages, was brought before the New York federal judge Louis A. Kaplan. In January 2022, Giuffre's former boyfriend, Anthony Figueroa, said on Good Morning Britain that Giuffre told him Epstein would take her to meet Prince Andrew. Figueroa alleged the meeting had taken place in London, before which she was really nervous and scared because she didn't know how to react to it. In a court filing, Prince Andrew's lawyers had previously referred to a statement by Figueroa's sister, Crystal Figueroa, who alleged that in her bid to find victims for Epstein, Giuffre had asked her, "Do you know any girls who are kind of slutty?" In the same month, Carolyn Andriano, who as a 14-year-old was introduced by Giuffre to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and was a prosecution witness in the trial of Maxwell, claimed in an interview that then 17-year-old Giuffre told her in 2001 that she had slept with Prince Andrew. Andriano stated, "And she said, I got to sleep with him. She didn't seem upset about it. She thought it was pretty cool." In February 2022, Prince Andrew agreed to an out-of-court settlement by paying an undisclosed sum of money. Alan Dershowitz allegations and related lawsuits. Giuffre claims that Epstein sex trafficked her to lawyer and Harvard Law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz at least 6 times, the first when she was aged 16. He denied the claims. Dershowitz represented Epstein in his 2008 criminal conviction and helped to negotiate the controversial non-prosecution agreement on his behalf. The claims first appeared in a December 30, 2014, Florida court filing by lawyers Bradley J. Edwards and Paul G. Castle, which alleged that Dershowitz was one of several prominent figures, including Prince Andrew, to have participated in sexual activities with a minor later identified as Giuffre. The affidavit from Giuffre was meant for inclusion as part of the 2008 lawsuit accusing the Justice Department of violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act during Epstein's first criminal case. Dershowitz vehemently denied the allegations in Giuffre's statement and sought disbarment of Edwards and Castle, the lawyers filing the suit. Edwards and Castle sued Dershowitz for defamation in 2015, he countersued. The two parties settled in 2016 for an undisclosed financial sum. Following denials by Dershowitz, Giuffre stated, "I'm not going to be bullied back into silence." In 2014, Giuffre was represented by Stanley Pottinger, whose firm specializes in sex abuse cases involving women and children. Anticipating the challenges that awaited Giuffre in accusing extremely wealthy and powerful individuals, Pottinger looked for another lawyer that could match this. At the request of Pottinger, David Boies and his firm Boies Schiller Flexner began representing Giuffre pro bono in 2014. Boies represents several of Epstein's accusers. In addition to Boies, attorneys for Giuffre include Brad Edwards and Paul Castle. In April 2019, Giuffre sued Dershowitz for defamation in New York, with Boies as her lawyer. That June, Dershowitz filed a motion to dismiss Giuffre's suit and a motion to disqualify Boies' firm from representing her. Giuffre stated in September 2019 that she continued to stand by her claims of misconduct by Dershowitz. Dershowitz accused Boies of pressuring Giuffre to provide false testimony, in response to which Boies sued Dershowitz in November 2019 for defamation. In April 2019, Maria Farmer filed an affidavit in support of Giuffre's defamation suit against Dershowitz, which stated that while Farmer worked signing in guests at Epstein's front desk in 1995–1996, she had regularly encountered Dershowitz at the New York mansion at times when underage girls were present. In October 2019, Charles Cooper took over representation of Giuffre in the defamation suit against Dershowitz after a judge ruled that Boies could not continue as Giuffre's lawyer because Dershowitz's claim that she conspired with her attorneys to make false claims had turned Boies into a potential witness. A trial involving Dershowitz and Giuffre could have started in March 2023 after wrapping fact discovery by November 30, 2022 and expert discovery by February 15, 2023. However, on November 8, 2022, it was announced that Giuffre had dropped her allegations against Dershowitz, stating that she may have made a mistake. Civil cases. Virginia Roberts Affidavit. I. Virginia Giuffre v. Ghislaine Maxwell/I. None. I. Virginia Giuffre v. Alan Dershowitz/I. None. I. Virginia Giuffre v. Prince Andrew/I. None. Irina O. v. Virginia Giuffre/I. None. Second criminal case. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on July 6, 2019, at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey and charged with sex trafficking and sex trafficking conspiracy by prosecutors with the Public Corruption Unit of the Southern District of New York. In the indictment, Epstein was accused of soliciting massages from underage girls where the activities became increasingly sexual and then of enlisting the girls to recruit other underage victims for pay. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York appealed for other victims of Epstein to come forward. The federal indictment also listed the key role of Epstein's paid employees and associates responsible for scheduling victims. 1 month after his arrest, Epstein was found dead on August 10, 2019, after reportedly hanging himself in his Manhattan prison cell. On August 29, 2019, in the wake of Epstein's death 19 days prior, the case against Epstein was closed after District Judge Richard Berman dismissed all sex trafficking charges. Judge Berman expressed support for Epstein's accusers, stating that he invited them to speak publicly at a hearing on August 27, 2019, out of respect for the difficult decisions victims made to come forward. Giuffre was among the 16 women who spoke publicly at the hearing, which included Aniska DeGiorgio, Sarah Ransom, Jennifer Arrayas, Chauncey Davies, Courtney Wild, Teresa J. Helm, and Marichka Chartouni. At the hearing, Giuffre stated, "The reckoning must not end. It must continue. He did not act alone. We the victims know that." Prosecutors signaled that they would continue an investigation for potential co-conspirators. Media coverage and appearances. Giuffre appeared on a special edition of Dateline NBC with Savannah Guthrie discussing the Epstein scandal along with victims Aniska DeGiorgio, Rachel Benavidez, Jennifer Arrayas, Marichka Chartouni, and Chauncey Davies. The special, titled Reckoning, aired on September 20, 2019. Giuffre was interviewed for the 60 Minutes Australia investigation that aired on November 10, 2019. In the program she describes her experiences of being trafficked by Epstein and Maxwell to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times in 2001, the first time being in London at Maxwell's Belgravia residence, the second at Epstein's New York mansion, and the final occurrence on Little St. James. Giuffre also gave an interview in October 2019 to the BBC, describing her experience of being sex trafficked by Epstein to Prince Andrew, for a Panorama special, The Prince and the Epstein Scandal, which aired on December 2, 2019. In the program, Giuffre directly appealed to the public by stating, "I implore the people in the UK to stand up beside me, to help me fight this fight, to not accept this as being okay." BBC reporter Emily Maitlis conducted a Newsnight interview with Prince Andrew, discussing Giuffre's allegations and his friendship with Epstein, which aired on November 16, 2019. The reaction to the prince's conduct during the interview was one of overwhelming disapproval. This, combined with Giuffre's public appeal, helped lead to a widespread shift in opinion by the British people. The prince resigned from his royal duties on November 20, 2019, as a number of organisations and charities that he was connected to severed ties. Despite the prince's promises to assist authorities, in January 2020, U.S. Attorney Geoffrey Berman stated that Prince Andrew had provided zero cooperation after the FBI and the Southern District of New York had requested to interview him as part of the Epstein inquiry. Giuffre appeared, along with Maria Farmer, in a 4-part Netflix series, released in May 2020, titled Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, directed by Lisa Bryant and based on the earlier book of the same name by James Patterson. In July 2020, following Maxwell's federal indictment, Giuffre was interviewed by Gayle King for CBS This Morning. Giuffre and other survivors of Epstein's sex trafficking ring were featured in the 4-part documentary series Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, which premiered on August 9, 2020, on Lifetime. Personal life. Following her marriage to Robert in 2002, Giuffre lived in the Glenning Valley suburb of New South Wales Central Coast in Australia for 11 years. The family relocated to the United States in November 2013 and stayed for several years, initially spending time in Florida, and later in Colorado in 2015. In 2019, it was reported that Giuffre lived in Cairns, Australia, with her husband Robert and their 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. In 2020, she moved with her family to Ocean Reef, a suburb of Perth, Western Australia.